Minutes past 8, Radio Wammo Breakfast. Time to talk with the co-leader of the Green Party, Russel Norman, with us this morning. Morning, Russell.
Morning, Wammo.
And first up, let's talk about the alcohol laws. The government is planning on making some changes to the liquor laws and giving MPs a conscience vote on the drinking age, but the other changes will be enforced, like restricting bottle shop hours, forcing clubs to close earlier, changing the way supermarkets can market and sell alcohol. Do these changes go far enough in your mind?
Well, some of them are positive changes, but you know, obviously we've been also interested in looking at the advertising around alcohol, which is one of the things that the government's not so keen at looking at. But some of them are good.
What about the conscience vote on the age?
You know, the Greens have taken a view that the 18 should stay the age. It's basically the age of becoming an adult. It's the age we can go to war and everything else. We can vote. So, you know, we think that you need to treat people as adults at 18.
Because what are they currently looking at? They're currently looking at off-licence, raising it to 20, but keeping it 18 at bars and clubs.
Yeah, that's one of the options that'll be on the table.
Which is kind of what was enforced before, really, wasn't it? You could have a meal at 18 and drink. Yeah.
So, to some degree it's like it was before, but it's not exactly the same.
Was it a failed experiment to lower the age?
I don't think so. I mean, I think, you know, 18 is when you become an adult and you get all the rights and responsibilities of being an adult, and that includes the rights and responsibilities around the use of drugs like alcohol, a legal drug of alcohol. So I just think that we need to start from that starting point, really. And specifically with advertising, what would you have liked to have seen? Well, we just think that, you know, it's like tobacco. We think it's a drug. Obviously, alcohol causes some social harm, and so we would just say, you know, no alcohol advertising on telly or radio. Can the world still go round without alcohol sponsorship? Yeah, we used to have tobacco sponsorship and everything. I don't know, people probably don't remember the day when all the sports clubs were funded by tobacco companies, which is a kind of funny contradiction. And we managed to survive the loss of that sponsorship. It's interesting because, of course, we know that the alcohol industry would have had lobbyists in Parliament, in ministers' ears, talking about this. And it's also interesting, over the past week we've heard about these lobbyists, but we don't know who they are, and the fact that they have these swipe card access things into the corridors of power as such. Would you look forward to a bit more transparency around that? Yeah, I mean, the Greens have been promoting transparency around lobbying since 2005 when we released our open government policy. And, you know, it's pretty straightforward, and there's a lot of models overseas whereby you have a register, a public register, which shows who's lobbying whom about what. It's not that complicated. Yeah. Okay, moving on to student loans. The Tertiary Education Minister, Stephen Joyce, says student loan repayments will be increased in the upcoming budget, forcing borrowers to pay back their loans faster when they get a job. Of course, the National Party promised at some point, I think maybe it was not the last election before, that they weren't going to be touching student loans. But paying them back faster sounds like a good idea, though, right? Well, I mean, you can do that now if you want. I mean, it's a tax increase effectively for graduates. Why are they doing it? Well, because the government threw its books into a big hole because it gave tax cuts to upper income earners. So they got rid of the progressivity of the tax system, reduced its progressive nature, and instead are trying to make up the money in all sorts of ways, and this is one of the ways they're trying to make up the money. Of course, it doesn't actually really help the government in the long term because the money was going to be paid back. Yeah. It's just that it's paid back shorter. So like everything else National does, they're trying to fix things up in the short term, but it actually doesn't solve the bigger fiscal problem that the government's got because they've thrown the budget into a big hole. Were you at all worried that they would they would start looking at the interest-free aspect of the loans? I think they would have suffered, they made some very strong statements. They wouldn't do that, so I think it would put them in a difficult position if they did. Do you still agree with interest-free loans? Yeah, I mean, I think that providing some support so that people can get an education, a tertiary education, or a post-secondary education is actually important. It's important for the individuals and it's important for society because there's a whole bunch of positive benefits for society when we have a more educated population. So the individual gets some of the benefit, but society also gets some of the benefits for the same reason that we have research and development support for businesses. Those businesses get some benefit from R&D, but society more generally gets some benefit as well. So that's why there's support from the public purse for it.
Okay, finally, what to do with John Banks?
Get rid of him.
Do you think
we had enough of the ACT Party nonsense now? We've had years of it.
Yeah. Do you think he should be stood down now?
Yeah, of course he should. He should just leave Parliament. ACT should just go, find a big hole and jump in it and disappear. We're just sick of their nonsense and their hypocrisy. These people are just sickening and they make a mockery of politics.
On that note, Russel Norman, thanks very much for your time.
Pleasure. Thanks very much.
Leader of the Greens,